A quiet voice, a cozy story, and rain outside the window. It's all here for you. If this brings you peace, consider liking and subscribing. Do you listen at bedtime or during the day to unwind? I never meant to keep walking that way. It just happened. At first, it was a small detour, a turn past the bakery, even when I didn't need bread, down the long stretch of road where the trees lean just slightly inward, where the wind sounds different, like it's trying not to disturb anything. I would slow down near the bus stop with the cracked bench, the one with the poster that never changed, even after the event had long passed. At first, I told myself it was just nicer that way. Fewer cars, less noise. But I knew better. That stretch, that long, unnecessary curve was the path I used to take with her. She never liked shortcuts. Said they always skip the part where the world reveals something small but worth noticing. She had a way of walking that wasn't fast, but never aimless. Like she was tuned into something I couldn't hear, but could feel when I was near her. After she left, I kept the route. Not out of habit, out of respect, I think, or memory, or the kind of silence that asks you not to rush through it. Even now, years later, I take that same turn. Past the lamp post with the sticker half peeled, past the narrow garden someone tends with more care than most people give to themselves. I never see who keeps it alive, but it always blooms, especially when it shouldn't. And every time I pass it, I slow down just enough to let something in me catch up. I don't talk out loud, not to her, not to anyone. But in my mind, there's a rhythm steps that fall in time with old conversations. The kind where words weren't always needed, where presence was enough. I walk the long way, not to remember her, but to remember myself beside her. Who I was in that quiet, who I became in the pauses between streetlights. People pass by sometimes, faces I don't recognize. Some nod, some don't. But I like to think she would have smiled at them, not to start a conversation, but to remind them they were seen. I still do that. I still let my hands brush the hedge where she used to stop, to fix the little stone someone once placed, like a marker. No one ever moves it. I think maybe no one dares. Or maybe no one notices, but I do. And that's enough. The long way home isn't longer by much, just a few extra blocks. 10 minutes more if I'm walking slowly. But in that space, in that time, something shifts. The world becomes soft again. And I feel less like someone moving through a city and more like someone arriving in a place that has already forgiven them. I don't know if that makes sense. It doesn't have to. Not everything we do for love fits on a map. Some of it lives in the bends, in the silence between footsteps, in the way we choose to go around not because we're lost, but because that's where we were once found. It happened without thought. I was distracted by a phone buzzing in my pocket, or maybe by the sudden change in the sky. That kind of light that turns the pavement silver for a minute and makes everything feel like it's holding its breath. Whatever the reason, I turned left instead of right. Just a block too early. It wasn't much, just a faster path that shaved off the quiet bend, skipped the corner where the stone sat by the hedge, where I usually slowed down. And yet, by the time I reached my building, I felt it. Something small had been skipped, like I'd forgotten to say thank you or left a sentence unfinished. My body knew before my mind did. The tension in my shoulders, the way my feet paused at the last step as if waiting for me to notice. I stood there for a moment in front of the door, keys still in my hand, and took a breath. I could have gone back, retraced the steps. But it wasn't about the steps now. It was about something I didn't understand yet. When I looked down, there was an envelope. No name, just a single folded paper, cream-colored, tucked gently into the doorframe, like a bookmark. I picked it up slowly. Inside, a single line, handwritten in ink, I recognized, but hadn't seen in a long time. You must have taken the short way today. I waited longer. I stood very still, not shocked, not even confused, just stilled, like a bell had been struck far away and I was feeling the vibration reach me long after the sound had passed. It wasn't her handwriting. That much I knew. It was neater, more deliberate, and yet it echoed her, not in shape, but in rhythm, in tone, in the way she used to tease gently, never accusing, only noticing. I didn't know who left it, how they knew, or why. But the moment I read it, something in me exhaled. I pressed the paper flat against the inside of the door and stared at it a long time, not looking for clues, just letting the fact of it settle. Someone had waited. Someone had noticed I wasn't where I usually was. That meant I had been seen, not remembered, not in a distant framed kind of way, seen now, present. That night I didn't sleep easily, not from fear, from weight. The weight of being witnessed in a way that didn't ask questions. I lay awake, eyes on the ceiling, wondering if I had ever truly understood how far a simple path could stretch not in distance, but in meaning. Tomorrow I knew I'd take the long way again, not just to walk it, but to return to being someone who chooses to arrive slowly, who believes, now more than ever, that the world listens when we move through it with care. It didn't happen every day, just often enough to feel intentional. The first time, it was a flower, one of those small yellow ones that grow between pavement cracks, laid gently at the base of the bench by the garden wall, not placed for display, just there. I almost missed it, but something about the angle, the quiet precision of how it rested, made me pause. A few days later, a page torn from an old paperback was taped discreetly to the street lamp near the curb. The tape was nearly invisible. The wind hadn't touched it. The page had no title, just a single highlighted line. There are roots the heart memorizes before the mind ever catches up. It made my breath slow. I stood there for longer than I needed to. No one else seemed to notice. No one turned their heads or glanced up, but I felt it. The same careful attention I'd once felt beside her, the kind of presence that never asked to be known, only felt. After that, I started looking, not searching, not expecting, just opening my eyes more gently. The bench near the cracked tile had a folded paper tucked under the wood. Still walking the long way, I smiled without thinking. Not out of surprise, but recognition. Whoever it was, they weren't watching. Not in the way people watch, It was more like they were keeping rhythm, like we were both walking through the same music, just on different beats. Once, near dusk, as I passed the bakery, someone was playing music from a window above. A scratchy old recording of a song we both used to hum without ever knowing the words. I stopped, leaned slightly against the wall, pretending to check my phone. But really, I just listened, not to the music, to the moment, the timing, the quiet offering of memory rephrased. I didn't know what this was, a game, a kindness, a mirror, but it never asked for anything. It never left instructions, just hints, gentle echoes. And with each one, I felt a bit less like I was retracing an old path, and more like I was walking beside someone, even if we never met, even if we never spoke. The long way home had become something else. Not just ritual, not just grief, but conversation. In objects, in pauses, in the space where a voice once lived, and now many lived beside it. And though I never altered my route, never changed pace, I realized I'd begun walking with the awareness that I was not the only one remembering something. And that kind of company, the quiet kind, is the rarest kind of all. It took me longer than it should have, not for lack of thought, but for hesitation. I wasn't sure if it was mine to answer. Whoever had been leaving those messages, those gentle markers along the path, they had never asked for anything in return. It felt sacred in a quiet way. But one morning, after a night of stillness that had felt heavier than usual, I woke with a sentence already in my mouth. It had no weight, no design, just a shape, like a small stone that fits perfectly in your palm. I wrote it carefully on a small slip of paper, folded it once, carried it in my coat pocket all day, fingers brushing it gently as I walked. At the curve where the trees lean in, just before the lamppost with the taped page, I slid the note between the bricks, not hidden, not obvious. Just there, like everything else had been waiting to be noticed or not. The words were simple. I never knew this silence could feel like company. That was all. I didn't sign it. Didn't check back that evening. I kept walking, kept reading what the world offered, but something in me shifted. Not anticipation, more like release. Like I'd finally admitted I wasn't only receiving this quiet attention, I was ready to give it back. For a few days, nothing changed. No new notes, no flowers, just the route as it had always been dusk, settling gently across the rooftops, the old poster at the bus stop still clinging to a past event, the garden still blooming impossibly out of season. And then, one morning, I noticed the stone by the hedge. The one she always stopped to adjust had been moved, just slightly, turned, not in a way anyone would notice unless they'd looked at it for years. But I had, and I knew. It wasn't a reply, it wasn't a message, but it was something else. A gesture, a breath back, a hand lightly pressed against a memory. Not to change it, but to let it know it was seen. That night, I didn't read. I just sat by the window, lights off, the quiet stretching through the apartment like soft fabric. And I whispered, not to anyone, not even to her, just to the silence itself. Thank you. And I meant it. Not for being answered, but for being allowed to speak. I left 10 minutes earlier that day, not by design. The clock simply moved quicker than I expected, and my body followed. The streets were emptier than usual, the kind of emptiness that doesn't feel hollow, just untouched. The light was different too, not quite morning, not quite night. A soft gray that made everything feel quieter than it was. As I turned the corner near the bench by the leaning trees, I saw someone already there, standing, not seated, not moving, just still. They were facing the hedge, not me. Their hands were at their sides, and something, maybe a note, maybe nothing, was between their fingers. I slowed instinctively, my breath catching not from fear, but from the strange sense of stepping into a story mid-sentence. They didn't turn, didn't acknowledge me. But I knew not from logic, not from evidence I knew it was them. The one who had left the messages, the flower, the book page, the shift in the stone. There was no dramatic recognition, no spark, just the calm certainty that we were at last in the same frame. I stopped a few steps behind, not close enough to interrupt, not far enough to pretend I hadn't seen. And in that moment, something passed between us. Not spoken, not even seen, exactly, but felt like when two birds pause on opposite ends of a wire. No need to greet, no need to name, just shared stillness. They placed the note, if that's what it was, near the base of the hedge, then turned, slowly. Their eyes met mine for just a moment. No surprise, no urgency, only warmth, the kind that says, "Yes, I know you've been walking too." I didn't smile, neither did they. But I think we both meant to. It wasn't awkward. It wasn't anything, really. Just enough. They walked past me gently, with the kind of pace I've learned to recognize the pace of someone who listens when they move. I didn't turn to follow. I stood there a while, letting the space they left behind remain full. When I finally approached the hedge, the note was gone. Or maybe they hadn't left one at all. Maybe that was the message. Maybe that was the reply. I see you. You don't have to ask anymore. That evening, I walked a long way again. Not for memory, not for ritual, but because now it was something shared. The road hadn't changed, but I had. I no longer walked it alone. I still remember the first time I took the long way. It wasn't planned. We had just left the cafe near the station, the one with mismatched chairs and too loud music, and she had paused at the corner. "What if we went this way?" she'd asked, pointing toward a narrower street I'd never noticed. I checked my watch. We had nowhere urgent to be. "Sure," I said, but I didn't understand, not then. She didn't say anything more, just started walking slowly, her coat swinging slightly as she moved. The street was quieter, the buildings older, with peeling paint and crooked windows that looked like they had stories to tell if someone only stopped long enough to listen. We passed a record store with its shutters halfway down, a woman watering plants from a second-floor window, a mural faded by time but still soft in color. She didn't talk much during that walk. Neither did I. But it wasn't silence. It was something else, a shared ease, like both of us had agreed, silently to not rush whatever this was. When we reached her building, she turned to me and said, "That felt longer, didn't it?" I nodded. "But better." She smiled, and that was it. The moment folded into memory, like paper tucked into a drawer, not needed again, but never thrown away. I didn't realize it then, but that one choice to not take the fast route became a kind of seed. And, like all seeds, it waited. It waited through seasons, through changes, through the parts of life that pull you toward efficiency. But now I know. The detour became the path. The extra 10 minutes became the time I lived inside the most. When she left, I kept walking that street. Not as ritual, as rhythm, as return. I never traced the path to recreate her. I knew better. You can't follow someone back into time, but you can follow yourself into the shape you became beside them. That's what I do now. With each step, I walk the moment we shared that first detour. I walk the pause, the gentle silence, the question that didn't need an answer. And I remind myself softly, not all time is spent. Some is given, some is kept. Some stays in your body so long you forget it was ever a choice. And then, when you finally remember, it greets you like it never left. The letter came folded in thirds. No envelope, just left at the edge of the bench, weighed down by a smooth, round stone. I noticed it as I passed by, no name on it, not even the paper's edge curling with weather. It was too deliberate to ignore. I picked it up, uncertain, not expecting anything. I didn't open it right away. I walked with it in my hand for the rest of the way home, letting its weight settle in my palm, light but impossible to forget. When I finally unfolded it, the handwriting was unfamiliar, uneven, a little unsure, but the words had clarity. I take this path when I need to feel less rushed. I never knew who made it feel like that until now. I think it's you. You don't know me, but I walk slower because of you. That was all. No name, no signature. Just the echo of something I hadn't realized had grown beyond me. I read it twice, then again. Not searching for a deeper message, just letting the plain truth of it land where it needed to. Someone else had been walking the same road. Maybe not the same time, maybe not with the same memories, but they had felt it, the quiet, the softness, the invitation not to hurry. It had reached them, and they had let it reach back. I thought about how long I'd walked that path, believing it was my private ritual, my quiet, grief-shaped habit. But perhaps, in repeating it, I had carved something wider, a space, a rhythm, a route people didn't know they needed until they were inside it. And now, someone else was keeping pace, not behind me, not beside me, just somewhere along the same stretch of stillness. That night I didn't write a note. I lit a candle instead. Left it on the windowsill facing the street. A small, steady glow. No message, just presence. A way to say, I see you too. Keep walking if you need to. Maybe no one noticed. Maybe someone did. It doesn't matter. The light is still there, quiet, undemanding, like the long way itself. Like the person I'm still becoming every time I choose not to rush. I've thought about what might happen if I ever stopped walking this way. If one day, without meaning to, I choose the faster path or move to another part of the city where the curve in the road no longer calls me by name. Would the route miss me? Would the garden still bloom unevenly? Would the bench still remember the weight of my paws? I used to think that walking the long way was about memory, about keeping something alive. But I see it differently now. This path, this rhythm, it was never mine to hold. I carried it for a time, gently, yes, but like any quiet ritual, it lives beyond the person who begins it. I've seen it, in the notes, in the presence of others, in the small shifts the world offers when we learn to notice. Even if I stop, the stillness won't. Someone else will walk here, someone new, or someone who's always been here but never realized they were part of something until the wind changed, or a stone turned slightly, or a sentence appeared where they didn't expect one. That's how these things work. They echo not in volume, but in shape, in gestures, in the way a streetlight can remind you to breathe, or a crooked tile can feel like a homecoming. I don't need to be the one who keeps it going. It's already moving without me, and that feels more like comfort than loss. I think about her less now, not because I miss her less, but because the missing has softened. It's no longer sharp. It's part of the walk, part of the wind. She's become the silence between steps, not absence, but presence that no longer needs to announce itself. I still walk the long way home, not every day, but often, enough to keep listening. And when I do, I leave no message, no trace, just my footsteps, just the quiet. That's all it ever asked of me. That's all I ever needed to give.